they actually interrupted one of their songs. Can you believe that? And I switched it over to y'all to get a better coverage of it. But I want to know, Wes, I don't know if you know, but where can you get an Iraqi flag so, you know, might have a little...
I do not know. That's a good question. I guess you could go to some international hobby store and get those little dinky ones.
They might be out of date, though, shortly.
That's right.
That's very true. That's very true.
Thank you, David.
All right, thank you.
Richard, Sandy Springs, you're on AM-750, WSB. Good morning.
Yeah, Paul.
Yes.
Hello there.
Well, hi. How are you and the missus doing?
Yeah, we're doing fine, thank you. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine. Your wife checks in with me regularly, but I haven't heard from you because you've been delivering flowers.
That's right. I just want to make a brief comment. I just want you guys to know that my prayers are with all the families of the people that are involved in the war. Because I know a few people. I mean, I know of a couple people who have relatives that are over there.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, for years I've been listening to shortwave radio and listening to stations around the world, and today was the first time I ever heard a prayer recited on the BBC in London. They're usually very matter-of-fact, no religion on that, and tonight they said a prayer, and I knew that it was real when I heard that. Richard, I appreciate your call.
Take care, Paul.
And next will be Tim in Lawrenceville. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Yes, sir. I was just wanting to say, like, tonight I was working, and whenever I heard about it, listening to 96 Rock, and I was working in back making pizzas, and as soon as that happened, all the TV stations started carrying the news. You'd be surprised of how much more business we got tonight compared to other nights this week.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Interesting. I was, you guys will get a kick out of this, but I was, during the president's speech, I decided to see who was carrying it. MTV had the president's speech on.
Unbelievable.
After the speech, they played that crazy left-wing new remake of Give Peace a Chance with John Lennon's son now. Right after that. They kept playing it over and over and over, and I now don't have a TV. I kicked the TV, and I got to go out and buy a new TV.
Hey, thank you for your call.
All right.
AM 750 WSB, Lee Hall with us, WSB News Director. His team has done a wonderful job, packed with people in here in the WSB newsroom tonight. Of course, we have access to all the major news services. We have a computer in here with us now. Anything that comes over the wire concerning Saddam Hussein's speech, which should be coming up in just a few minutes, we'll report that to you. We have 43 degrees on Peachtree, and another Crisis in the Gulf update on AM 750 WSB.
Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Katie Smith, AP Network News. Even in the face of a massive attack from Operation Desert Storm, Iraq's President Saddam Hussein remains defiant. In an Iraqi radio broadcast monitored in Nicosia, Cyprus, Saddam called President Bush a hypocritical criminal, and he vowed to crush what he called the satanic intentions of the White House. Pentagon officials, meanwhile, say the operation appears to have gone very, very well. Defense Secretary Dick Cheney says the U.S. allied forces are targeting military targets, taking care to avoid civilian casualties.
At the direction of the President, great care has been taken to focus on military targets, to minimize U.S. casualties, and to do everything possible to avoid injury to civilians in Iraq and Kuwait.
Kuwaiti exiles in Bahrain have poured from their homes to celebrate the U.S.-led attack on their nation. In Jerusalem, police report clashes with masked Palestinian youths in Arab East Jerusalem. They say that shots were fired at the U.S. consulate there, but there was no damage.
Wake up, George!
Hundreds of protesters have taken up positions outside the White House, trying to wake up President Bush. They're showing their support against the U.S. attack. Shortly after the attack, the president ordered the government to tap 1.12 million barrels of oil a day from the nation's strategic petroleum reserves for the next 30 days. Oil prices instantly soared to about $40 a barrel as war with Iraq began making news Wednesday night, the trader said, but crude has fallen back sharply as business is getting underway in what's now Thursday morning in Asia. This has been a live special report from AP Network News, Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Katie Smith, and this is the Associated Press Radio Network.
And this is Lee Hall in the AM 750 WSB News Center. It's about 12 minutes past midnight as we continue our coverage of war in the Gulf on AM-750 WSB and an extended version of Sound Off with Paul Gonzales and Wes Metter.
And I understand, Lee, that we're going to be getting an official report on the war from the media pool in Iraq. So we're going to find out exactly what happened, some of the stuff that they couldn't tell us about in a few minutes.
Yeah, we just got the official word from AP that the Associated Press is receiving pool copy. This is the copy that was filed by that official pool of journalists after everything is ended, after they've been debriefed, and we should have that within a few minutes. We also got word, we've had some calls earlier tonight in the news center and since regarding help for families and so forth, and phone banks that are set up. The Pentagon has now announced that it is setting up phone banks for military families to call for general information on servicemen and women participating in Operation Desert Storm. If you want to write these numbers down, I can give them to you now. For the Army, for general information, for the Army, it's area code 703-614-0739. That's 703-614-0739. For the Air Force, general information, 800-253-9276. That's Air Force, 800-253-9276. For the Navy, immediate family members only, area 800-255-3808. The Navy, 800-255-3808. And for the Marine Corps, for immediate family members, that's 800-523-2694. Marine Corps, 800-523-2694. Those are Pentagon numbers, and the Pentagon set up for general information for servicemen and women participating in Operation Desert Storm.
And we'll repeat those a little later on. Next call, Tom in Atlanta. And Tom, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Good morning. It's quite a somber feeling that I have right at the moment. I don't have any feeling of joy over this, for sure. Worried about the air crews that have been involved, and hope the reports are correct that we haven't lost any. I do want to tell you this. About 5:30 this afternoon, I got a call from a brother of mine who lives in Minneapolis, and he says, I don't know about you, but I got a feeling when we get home and see the 6 o'clock news, when it'll be about 2 a.m. in Baghdad, they'll announce the attack.
Yeah, we all know that we have superiority as far as fighting at night. I saw some actual pictures on the news tonight of what the Air Force pilots see when they're operating at night, and it's amazing. It's high-resolution black and white, and the Iraqis don't have anything like that, from what I understand.
Well, I came in.
So I think we all knew.
My brother served as a combat engineer lieutenant in the 4th Infantry Division in Vietnam, 67, 68, went through Tet Offensive. I served as an artillery battery commander in 1970 with the 101st. He and I were discussing this thing looks like it'll be about 10 days before they start the ground operations, and that's when it can really get gruesome.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it could start today. It could start right now, because it is just about 8:15 in that part of the world, and who knows? Nobody really knows. And if they start firing on us first, we're going to fire back. We're not going to have our hands tied like they were in the Vietnam War.
Well, there's a lot of rhetoric coming out of Baghdad, and we'll know more, as you said earlier, about this radio message, but I have a feeling we're going to see a white flag sometime soon.
That I hope. Our next call is Paul in Atlanta. You're on AM-750 WSB. Paul Gonzales, Wes Minter, Lee Hall with you.
Hey, Wes.
Aren't you going to say hi to me and Lee?
Well, hi, Paul. Hi, Lee.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Wes.
Wes, yes.
Now you really got me going.
Yeah.
Do you remember the caller this morning on Ludlow's show? It's about 9:30. The guy calls up and calls Bush a wimp and says this whole thing's a bluff.
No, sir, I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
I wonder, though, if Saddam Hussein thought this was a bluff. I mean, it seemed like we caught him with their pants down.
I think we did. I really think he did not believe that America was going to go through with it. I think he thought we were just going to sit down and laugh at him or something.
And I'll admit, I had feelings that maybe we were playing a poker game.
Well, you know, maybe he was believing these reports on TV, seeing the pictures of all these lefties out there on the Golden Gate Bridge. Who knows? Maybe he was believing the media reports that he was being shown on CNN and other news outlets.
And who knows? He's only been out of Iraq briefly, and understand he's pretty naive about the rest of the world. John in Buckhead, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Yeah, I had a quick comment about how Saddam Hussein always throws these real cheap shots at us and then, you know, turns his tail and runs when it starts getting a little nasty and heated up. I always find that a little bit amusing. I think the first one was when he said that he was going to poke the eyes out of the Americans that come over the that come over the line into Iraq. I thought that was rather amusing. But what I wanted to ask was, what exactly are the consequences to the conscientious objectors? What's going to go on? As far as jail, what exactly happens to them?
Well, we don't have the draft right now, so we don't have to be concerned with it. But the ones who are in the military are probably going to go to jail.
Well, they will face, if they disobey orders, they face a court-martial hearing.
Really?
Most of them will, yes.
Speaking of Saddam's words, we saw something on the computer a little earlier. I don't know if we can get it back again. Some really bizarre words and warnings that he had to tell us. We're going to try to pump those up on our computer again in just a moment.
Well, I've got some information even superseding that, Paul. There's a word now out of Washington. It's only the beginning. The Pentagon says thousands of planes will be involved in a sustained series of military attacks on targets in Iraq and Kuwait. A source at the Pentagon tells the Associated Press these attacks will continue for a sustained period of time. Defense Secretary Cheney says he has great confidence in U.S. forces. He stresses that no one should doubt the American ability and resolve to carry out the mission. So apparently it's not over.
We have 43 degrees on Peachtree. Now, every 10 minutes, you're going to get updates here on AM-750 WSB. No 40 minutes of songs in a row or any of that kind of jive. And right now, another War in the Gulf update from AM-750 WSB's News Center. It's 43 degrees on Peachtree. Paul Gonzales, Wes Minner, Lee Hall on AM-750 WSB. And our next caller, we'll have that update in a moment. Our next caller is going to be Chris in Atlanta. And Chris, you're on AM 750 WSB.
Yes, I'm a first-time caller, and I want to say right now that I'm very proud to be an American.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of everything that's going on, and that our president is showing some, male organs. And I just want to make this one comment. I hope that by tomorrow morning that the Iraqi Air Force is the same size as the Iraqi Navy. And just God bless America and our troops.
Where were you when you first heard the word, real quick?
I was at work, and somebody called and said, we were listening to a tape or something, and somebody said, it started. That's all they said. And we turned it on, and that's what we heard. And I couldn't sleep. I turned on y'all's station.
We appreciate your call, and right now we will have that War in the Gulf update from the AM 750 WSB News Center.
Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Katie Smith, AP Network News. Iraq's President Saddam Hussein is bitterly attacking President George Bush with words in the wake of a devastating Allied air assault on Iraq. Saddam says Bush is a hypocritical criminal, and he says he'll crush what he calls the satanic intentions of the White House. This after U.S. forces launched an attack on Iraq and Kuwait beginning about 7 p.m. Eastern Time. AP correspondent Thelma Lebrecht at the Pentagon says the massive air operation isn't over yet.
One Pentagon source says the operation is still continuing and that it will continue for a sustained period of time. They're aiming at targets in Iraq and Kuwait, and the source says thousands of planes, not just the hundreds that were mentioned, but thousands of planes will be involved. The planes from the U.S., Britain, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait aiming for military targets in Iraq.
NATO allies held an emergency meeting in Brussels. They say they hope the hostilities can end as soon as possible, but they're warning Iraq against an attack on Turkey. They say an attack against one NATO member is an attack against the entire alliance. U.S. lawmakers also say they hope the conflict will end quickly with few American casualties. Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman David Boren says so far the U.S. military strategy has been a sound one.
It appears to be effective, and certainly I would say the right targets have been hit. Certainly from my point of view, I think the president has chosen the right targets. He's focused on command and control. That's very important because if we can, in essence, decapitate the Iraqi military, keep the top leaders from communicating with their troops, causing their troops in other locations to feel cut off, uncertain about what to do, that's very important.
Turkey's premier, meanwhile, says he'll ask his parliament to let U.S. warplanes use bases in Turkey. This has been a live special report from AP Network News. Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Katie Smith. This is the Associated Press Radio Network.
And then this is Lee Hall in the AM 750 WSB News Center, 22 minutes past midnight. As we continue our extended version of Sound Off, we'll have continuing updates on the war in the Persian Gulf throughout the morning, and of course all morning long on Atlanta's Morning Show. We've got a number of our news experts coming in, military strategists, our Middle East analysts and so forth to bring us up to date on what's going on. But not a lot has happened in the past 2 or 3 hours. There was a very lightning strike into Kuwait and Iraq earlier this evening in Atlanta time. And it's just about over for the moment, although we are told that those strikes will continue. That word from the Pentagon a short while ago. AM-750, WSB, Paul Gonzales, Wes Minter, and Lee Hall.
Yeah, you talked about what it was like earlier. Somebody described the bombing as like a 104th of July's. Our next caller at 12:22 is going to be Todd in Villa Rica. You're on AM-750, WSB. Hello, Todd. Hello, Todd. Bobby Decatur, you're on AM-750. No, that's not Bobby. Hello, Keith in Lawrenceville. You're on WSB.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you, what do you think the Japanese are in this war?
I think the Japanese are shirking their responsibility. I understand that the money that they pledged is about as much money as would cost them to buy one fancy building here in the United States.
Of course, and remember, the key word there was pledged.
Right. Yeah, we've been buying their VCRs, and unfortunately, the Japanese are going to make a lot of money off of this deal.
Finding out what you think at 872-0750 or toll-free from around the great Southeast, 1-800-WSB-TALK.
Next call is going to be Phil, Stone Mountain. You're on AM-750 WSB.
How you doing?
Okay.
Right. Yes, I got a brother on the Saratoga, and I was just wondering what role would he probably play?
Well, none of us are military analysts.
Oh, okay.
And
Saratoga's a carrier, correct?
Aircraft carrier, yeah.
And I believe it's in the Red Sea?
Yes.
Yeah, so it probably has a lot of the support aircraft. Who knows?
Okay.
We'll be pulling for him, Phil.
All right, thank you.
Mike, Gwinnett County, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Yes, Paul?
Yes.
Yes, you know, I have been listening to you for the last 2 to 3 weeks accidentally, and I've never heard a radio talk show that has been so comprehensive to the American cause as being yours.
Well,
I am a foreigner, and I came to this country back in 1966, and I was drafted in 67 and did 1 year in Vietnam. And I was drafted, and I served voluntarily, and I cry sometimes. Tears come to my eyes to see how stupid the American people are to their freedom in this country. And they have taken it for granted and don't understand that why we elect politicians is to judge what our freedom means to us in this country.
Yeah, Mike, I do, however, encourage protests, not protests that are going to stop something that's necessary to happen.
No, wait a minute. I don't misconstrue me, Paul. What I'm saying, I think that the American public just don't understand their freedom. They just don't understand why they drive nice cars.
Yeah.
Why they can go to the gasoline station and pay $1.40 a gallon for gas, the cheapest in the world, and they can live in their living rooms, and they can go out there and protest against a blatant tyrant like Saddam Hussein.
Where's your homeland, Mike?
I'm from Guyana.
Okay. Ooh.
And I wished, President Carter actually dismantled the CIA. And the reasons why bombs haven't been going off in the United States by the PLOs and whatever, because of our fantastic foreign intelligence that we've had, the FBI, the CIA, etc. Thank God for President Reagan, and thank God for President Bush.
And thank you so much.
Thank God to you for becoming an American citizen.
And thank you for the comments, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I wonder how we would deal with a war if we had it on our soil. I mean,
isn't that weird? Because I was driving home tonight up the expressway and looking at the cars and everything, and it was almost like, we have never really known what it's like to be attacked on our own ground. Here we are driving around, going to the stores, pumping gas, whatever price it is, and another country is having their people in bomb shelters.
Yep. Lee Hall, you have some more quotes by the lovely Saddam Hussein.
We've been waiting for the address that Saddam Hussein reportedly is making to his nation on Iraqi state radio. Saddam Hussein calls President Bush a hypocritical criminal. He vows to crush, quote, the satanic intentions of the White House. The 17th of January, the hypocrites struck. Saddam says in a Baghdad radio message, which has been monitored this morning in Nicosia, Cyprus, he says the great showdown has begun. Addressing his nation, he says, quote, the glorious sons of our nation, and the battle is one of justice against vice, of the believers against the infidels. And he says, with the perseverance of the believers, the dawn of victory nears as this great showdown begins. And we expect more information from that address on Iraqi state radio by Saddam Hussein coming very shortly.
Next call is going to be Gene in Kentucky. Gene, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Good evening. How you doing?
Fine, considering the situation.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I am an American, that I'm proud to be an American, and that I'm glad that President Bush took the stand that he took. I'm proud of all the pilots, the whole situation that's going on over there, and I'm behind them 100%. The only thing that concerns me is you take all the other dictators that have ever had anything to do with any kind of war against any country. They've always fled. They've always got out scot-free. We've had to hunt for them, and when we found them, it took all kinds of whatever to bring them to trial, to give them what they had coming.
Yeah, it's like Manny Noriega, I understand, has already cost the United States government $300,000 in security.
Right.
But a little bit more than that, though, when you add up all the legal costs. Yeah.
Right. So when this is all over with, and Hussein is still running free, and we're trying to find him, and he's still in hiding, to what extent are we going to go to try to bring him out and bring him to justice?
Well, it's an interesting point because, Manny Noriega was under federal indictments from the United States Justice Department, whereas Saddam Hussein is under a worldwide indictment, if you will, from the United Nations.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's over soon. I'd like to see the U.S. go in and the other countries that are allied with us do what needs to be done, free Kuwait, and take Iraq and put it back where it belongs as a little country. And like the guy was talking about the Air Force and the Navy, annihilate them, get them out of the way, forget about them, and go on with life. I mean, enough's enough.
What was it like in what town in Kentucky are you in?
I'm in Madisonville. I'm about 30 miles north of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which is just about drained of all the military, and the economy around here is terrible.
What are the people saying in your town?
They're wanting to go in and beat the daylights out of them. They're wanting. They're behind President Bush completely. They're behind the Senate and the Congress for taking the stand that they took, and that we feel totally justified. And everybody around here that I know and that I talk to are totally patriotic and behind the United States and what they're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you.
Appreciate your call. Paul Gonzales here, an extended edition of Sound Off. My special guest, Wes Minner, your special friend between 1 and 4 weekday afternoons, and also WSB News Director Lee Hall and company. Speaking of company, with a quick news update, here's Bob Glaskoff.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning. Hundreds of U.S. and Allied warplanes unleashed their weapons on Iraq and Kuwait on a moonless night, targeting Iraq's military installations in chemical and nuclear weapons facilities. The Pentagon says British, Saudi Arabian, and Kuwaiti fighter bombers joined American warplanes in the effort to free Kuwait. There are indications that stealth warplanes were involved. In addition, cruise missiles were fired at Iraq's installations, apparently from U.S. ships in the Persian Gulf. Now, in Iraq, Saddam Hussein is apparently alive. After the initial attacks, Baghdad radio broadcast a message from Saddam saying that the great showdown had begun. The government-owned Iraqi radio station quoted Saddam as saying, "The mother of all battles has now begun." The station also said the Iraqis, quote, "will teach the Americans a lesson." President Bush declared in a broadcast address that you heard here on AM-750 WSB that Kuwait will once again be free. Mr. Bush signed a secret directive to go to war Tuesday, several hours before the United Nations deadline for Iraq to withdraw from Kuwait, but he left the date of the implementation blank. White House News Secretary Marlin Fitzwater says Mr. Bush telephoned most of the Allied leaders in the couple of hours before the warplanes roared out of Saudi Arabia toward their targets. The president also contacted congressional leaders who immediately gave their support. The attack drew mixed reactions from around the globe. Kuwaiti exiles screamed in joy and honked their car horns in the streets of Cairo. A general at Fort McPherson in Atlanta keeps tabs on his old command, the 24th Mechanized Infantry in Saudi Arabia. AM-750 WSB's Doug Rink reports.
Major General Pete Taylor says the 24th Mechanized Infantry, along with its tanks, helicopters, and other gear, is ready for whatever comes.
If they're called upon to fight, they will give a very good account of themselves. And obviously, I'm watching them very closely.
General Taylor left the 24th for a job at Forces Command less than 2 months before Iraq invaded Kuwait. The 24th shipped out for the Gulf in August.
I would have a great desire to be with them, but I have great confidence in them, too.
Taylor also speaks with confidence about the 24th's current commander, another two-star general, Barry McCaffrey.
He's been training those soldiers over there very hard ever since he's had them in the desert. and he's prepared to do whatever he's asked to do.
Doug Rank, AM-750, WSB News.
Not everyone is applauding the U.S. attack, the Allied attack. Thousands of anti-war demonstrators poured into the streets in many U.S. cities tonight. About 150 rallied in the rain outside the White House. More than 3,000 protesters marched in San Francisco. AM-750 WSB, the only station with our own helicopter and airplane. Depend on Skycopter, Skyplane traffic. Now Atlanta's most accurate weather with WSB meteorologist Kirk Mellish.
The WSB exclusive 5-day forecast. Overnight, partly cloudy and colder, lows averaging around 36. Later today, partly sunny and cool, high around 51, low about 34. And the extended outlook Friday through Sunday, partly cloudy, turning windy and colder on Sunday. Highs Friday and Saturday 49 to 53. Temperatures Sunday afternoon steady or slowly falling to lows Sunday night around 25. I'm meteorologist Kirk Mellish in the AM-750 WSB Weather Center.
At 12:33, the temperature on Peachtree Street, 43 degrees. I'm Bob Glasscoff, and if news breaks out, we'll break in. AM-750 WSB. Depend on it.
And this is Paul Gonzales, an extended edition of Sound Off. We have Wes Minner, who's here on WSB Middays, joining us tonight, and WSB News Director Lee Hall, and callers all over the nation with their comments. Next is Mike and Marietta. Mike, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a question and a comment. I'll start with the comment, and I'm calling from a Chevron, and they're being true to their word. The oil price is going up tomorrow, as far as I know, just being a grunt.
How much?
That's at $1.07 right here.
But how much are they going up?
No price.
He said no price increase.
No increase as far as I know tomorrow or tonight. And my comment is, or my question is, I had a feeling that, this would be the turnout. I think we have a, definite superior air.
Mm-hmm.
But when we, if we do destroy Iraq, then are we going to end up paying for it? Rebuilding them for the next centuries.
Well, now, it depends here. Maybe the United States, if we can get Kuwait back in power, they have some money. And maybe the United States steel industry might even make some money. I don't know. Lee, do you have something to say to this guy?
No, I just wondered if you could hold on. We'd like to talk with him in the newsroom there.
Yeah, can you stay with us a little bit, sir?
Sure.
All right. Hold right there. Don't hang up.
Just stay right there because we're going to put you on the radio tomorrow. Next call is going to be Elizabeth in Cobb County. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Yes, Wes, and understand as I was coming home tonight that you lived in that area.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to ask him about that. And Wes, I bet you're glad you're not there now.
Well, let me find out if did you have a particular question about where I lived or something? Or?
Well, and my question is, I don't understand the Iraqi people,
Mm-hmm.
and I would like to have a little better understanding of them. I don't understand how a country could let a leader, one man basically, keep them in a war for 8 years with Iran, and had to have killed many, many, many of their sons,
mm-hmm.
and now they're letting him lead them into another war.
That's an interesting question, Wes.
Well, we did, if you may have remembered, if you heard earlier today, at 1 o'clock, she was probably at work and couldn't hear, but we had a professor on from Miami University in Ohio who's a professor of Islam, religious studies.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have to understand, and I don't understand it, and I lived with these people, not the Iraqis, but the Arabs and the Muslims, that the Muslim mentality is I'm a Muslim first and I'm a Saudi second, Iraqi second, whatever. And the kind of things, the sort of fundamentalism, and that's what it is, that comes out of the mouth of a Saddam Hussein or an Ayatollah Khomeini, is that you are serving Allah. And they have beat this into their head so much, and with a state-controlled press and a state-controlled religion, that this is service to your country, and but beyond that, it's service to Allah. And so she's right. We don't understand, and we did a show on that today about understanding the Muslim mind. And I'm not sure we did. One good thing out of this is because the Kuwaitis and the Saudis were on this initial strike, it basically just takes away any question whether or not another Muslim would fire on another Muslim. That was ended earlier this evening.
Yeah, the Saudis were very proud to fight this evening.
I lived in the center part. I lived in Riyadh, but traveled completely throughout the Middle East. We've heard from people who have sons and relatives in the eastern province, where Dhahran and Dammam is, and that's probably the most volatile, Paul, of the entire kingdom because of the strong Shiite population there.
Interesting about willing to die for Allah. It reminds us of our ancient history almost in this country, where during the Crusades we were told that if we died we would go directly to heaven. They're just several hundred years behind times, I guess you could say. Lee Hall, you have something to report to us.
Yeah, we just got a word in that the CNN now reporting that Iraqi TV plans to transmit a message from Saddam Hussein within a few minutes. So it looks like we are going to get that word that we've been waiting on here for a while.
Good.
We're beginning to get the first pool reports in from the Pentagon-chosen pool crews, the media pools in Saudi Arabia. And we're going to have information on that for you in a minute here, too, after our next update.
You actually have some quotes from some of the pilots.
Yes. Some quotes from some of the pilots coming.
Next call is David, Blacksburg, Virginia. And you're on AM-750 WSB. Good morning, David.
Good morning, sir. I must say I've never spoken on your radio station before, so the gentleman in your radio station, the people at your radio station I'm not familiar with. My question is, sir, can the United States ever expect to have peace until they face the crucial issue of the Middle East? And I don't mean to sound like un-American, because I am in favor of what we did.
You're saying it's time to bring the Israelis, the Palestinians, and everybody in that region together and work things out?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well,
the issue has to be erased, and I know I might be sounding anti-American, but...
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think there's a lot of Americans who share that very point, including people in Washington, D.C., perhaps even the President of the United States.
However, it's great hypocrisy for Saddam Hussein to talk about the freedom of the Palestinians when at the current time he's holding Kuwait. I mean, hey.
And he attacked Palestinians. Let's remember that. There were a lot of Palestinians who lived in Kuwait.
Next call is going to be Carrie in Lynchburg. And we'll take a quick call, and then we'll get another report. You can expect one every 10 minutes here on AM-750 WSB. Hello, Carrie.
Hello, Wes.
Hi.
I'm from Liberty University, and I'm from Atlanta, and I go to school up here in Lynchburg. My question is, I'll hang up after I've commented. What are your feelings and comments about whether or not Saddam has a proverbial, say, ace up his sleeve? Why you say that? Why do you think the bluff? Would you attribute that to his breakdown in technology for communication?
Okay, we'll answer that. Hang up. You can hear the answer on your radio, because right now it is 12:39, and that's time for another War in the Gulf update from the AM-750 WSB News Center, and then we'll continue and talk to people in Atlanta and all over the United States. Your chance to speak your mind and release some of the emotions that you have as war has come upon us in the Persian Gulf.
Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Katie Smith, AP Network News. Operation Desert Storm hits Iraq and occupied Kuwait.
5 months ago, Saddam Hussein started this cruel war against Kuwait. Tonight, the battle has been joined.
President Bush broadcasts a nationwide address to let the American people know the attack against Saddam Hussein's forces has started. Defense officials told reporters late Wednesday night the operation is proceeding very, very well. There have been no details on casualties from Iraq or Kuwait, but Iraq's president is firing back with a volley of harsh words. Saddam Hussein calls President Bush a hypocritical criminal, and he's vowing to crush the satanic intentions of the White House. Saddam is expected to address the nation soon, according to Iraqi radio reports that have been monitored in Nicosia. It's been a tense night for people in Saudi Arabia as well, with air raid sirens going off every now and then. That AP correspondent Tony Winton reports. So far, the alerts have been just warnings.
There is a lot of activity, a lot of hustle and bustle, but no panic. People have been very orderly, and there hasn't been any sense of out of control, helter-skelter. It's been as orderly as one could possibly expect it to be, given the circumstances.
AP correspondent Tony Whitten in Dhahran. A Western diplomat in Bahrain says Iraq did manage to fire 5 missiles after it came under attack, but the diplomat says the missiles either fell short of their targets or were destroyed. President Bush has ordered the sale of oil from the nation's strategic stockpile during the next 30 days. He says he wants to promote stability in world markets where the price of oil has soared and then dropped. This has been a live special report from AP Network News. Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Katie Smith, and this is the Associated Press Radio Network.
This is Lee Hall in the AM-750 WSB News Center, continuing our coverage of war in the Persian Gulf on AM-750 WSB. It's about 17 minutes before 1 in the morning in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's an extended version of Sound Off with Paul Gonzales and Wes Metter.
And next call, Mike in Douglasville.
Before we take that, let me answer the guy who called before from Lynchburg real quick. He said,
Sure.
What do you think that Saddam Hussein has up his sleeve? Obviously, I don't know if he has anything up his sleeve or not, but I have a feeling that, and it's just my opinion, that I believe the Iraqis were not expecting that attack like it came in, the strength that it came in. Obviously, it caught them all off guard. Most of their jets were on the ground. And B, not most, but some military experts, Paul, earlier this week were predicting that Iraq was willing to take one first hit and to sort of regroup. But then what does that regrouping mean? We understand that some of the missile installations aimed towards Israel were taken out. So if that's true that he was willing to take one hit, he took one huge hit that he didn't expect, and I don't think he has anything up his sleeve.
He may have not expected this to begin with. And our next caller is Mike in Douglasville. Hello, Mike. You're on WSB.
Hello. I'm not going to ask how y'all doing because I kind of know the feeling. Right now, I'm just mainly want to say congratulations to all the Allied forces in the Gulf. I think they did a tremendous job last night.
Yes.
Excuse me. And
You have your radio on. Can you turn that off, please?
Yeah, hang on a second.
Okay, it's 1243, and the number in Atlanta is 872-0750. Anywhere else, 1-800-WSB-TALK.
Okay, and I also wanted to commend the 3 journalists that were in the Baghdad hotel. They did an excellent job last night. Excellent job. I think they just did a great job. And my main concern right now is all the protests that is going on around the nation. I'm 20 years old, and I heard on a news broadcast or something like if there was going to be a draft, they would start drafting 20-year-olds primarily first. And I'm 20 years old, and I just feel that all this negative attitude is going to affect us if in fact that they do a draft. I know our feelings are really high right now, and I'm just mainly concerned. I really wish, that the people would back the president in the U.S. now, because there's nothing they can do about it. We are already at war. They might as well, I don't want to say quit the protest, because that's a freedom.
Yeah, we need to have that freedom.
Yeah, they have that freedom, but I just wish that they would kind of slack up a bit, because, they really can't do anything about it now, and they just need to back us. That way, if in fact there is a draft, it gives the boys, it sends them off on a positive attitude, and that's just my main concern right
I tell you, the person that can affect that the best, sir, is people like you, the ones closest to your own peers.
Next call, Jim in New Orleans. You're on AM 750 WSB.
Good evening.
Hello, Jim.
In college, I specialized in studies on the Middle East, and I have several books, and I've kept up with it, and I have some very optimistic news that is actual factual information, if you'd be interested.
That would be in order.
Okay. The first, there's 2 things to it. The political optimism and realities of what would happen after the war's over. I want to give you that. But the first thing I want to give you is the military optimism that we don't hear about. And my source, because people call up and anybody can say anything, I'd like to give you my source.
Okay, but let's do this quickly, because we got to get to a lot of people here.
Okay, well, this is factual information. This is from the International Institute for Strategic Studies, the publication, The Military Balance, which is the most quoted book on military force in the world. Okay, it shows if when you add up all the enemy countries that are around Iraq and the countries that are allied with us in the area, it comes to their total troop strength, actually, that these countries have is almost 5 million armed forces. Now, but the troops that are coordinated with us, there's a major force on the northern border of Iraq, and that is Turkey. Turkey has a total armed forces of almost 1.6 million men. That's just about as many as Iraq has.
Now, what's your point?
Yeah, what's the point here?
Okay. Turkey is very key because Turkey has been part of NATO since about 1950, and they have participated in NATO maneuvers with the U.S. for years, so they're well coordinated with us.
Are you suggesting that these neighboring nations haven't really bellied up to the labor pool, if you will?
Oh, not at all.
And that they will?
No, not at all. I'm not suggesting that. Turkey has participated in the blockade. Iraq has their oil pipeline going through Turkey. Turkey turned that off, and they put troops on the northern border with Iraq, and this weekend requested more missiles. Also, we have American jet aircraft as well as the NATO missiles and aircraft in Turkey. This is not spoken about. So what it amounts to is that militarily, even on the ground, Saddam Hussein doesn't have a prayer.
Okay, we appreciate your call. And Lee Hall, WSB News Director, you've got something just coming in on the wire here.
Well, it's just as the gentleman was saying, we reported earlier in the evening that the premier of Turkey has asked, or says that his parliament will be asked for war powers, which would give the United States permission to use those NATO bases in Turkey for continued attacks on Iraq.
If I'm not mistaken, too, they control some of the water supply to the south as well.
John, Lawrenceville, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Paul, I just want to say I have confidence in our Army against Iraq.
Oh, especially after we saw what happened with this first strike. I mean, we did a good one.
Well, yeah. Well, before then, I had confidence in our Army, in our Army, and I have full support. I'm full supportive behind George Bush and what he's doing right now. I think he knows what he's doing. He's a leader.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next call will be Christy in Marietta. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Hi. First of all, I just want to say how much I support everything that President Bush is doing. I don't think we could have had a president that could lay his cards as well as he has.
Have you all along?
No. I used to disagree with a lot of things he did, but I have a lot of confidence in him now. But there's another emotion that's been going through my head a lot, and I'm kind of worried about some of the things people have been saying, is not to forget about the people in Iraqi who have been so manipulated by Saddam Hussein, because I think that I think about the soldiers. They don't know. They have no idea what they're up against, because I'm sure he's lied to them like he's lied to a lot of people.
That's an interesting point.
And
I certainly wouldn't want to be an Iraqi.
I don't think our hate should be directed towards them, but towards Saddam Hussein.
As in any war. You know, people have been discriminatory to the Germans. You know, why could the Germans ever put a man up like Adolf Hitler? But that happens in societies, and it's one more reason to appreciate the fact that you live in America. Paul Gonzales here, an extended edition of Sound Off. My guests, Wes Minner and also Lee Hall. AM-750 WSB's exclusive Weather Center forecast. Cooler this morning with a low temperature of 37 degrees. As the day progresses, partly cloudy and cool with a high of 53 degrees. And now another War in the Gulf update from the AM-750 WSB News Center. It's 12:50.
Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Katie Smith, AP Network News. President Bush calls it the liberation of Kuwait. Saddam Hussein calls it the Great Showdown. Whatever you call it, both agree that an attack is underway by U.S.-led forces against Iraq and Kuwait. Wave after wave of airplanes have streaked north from Saudi Arabia bases to punish Iraq for its 5-month defiance of the rest of the world and UN sanctions demanding that it withdraw its forces from Kuwait. Pentagon officials are still hopeful that Iraq will take some action to stop the hostilities, as we hear from AP correspondent Thelma Lebrecht.
The Defense Secretary makes it clear that the goal of the attack is to liberate Kuwait and destroy Iraq's military targets. But some Pentagon officials also hope that a massive air campaign would force Saddam Hussein to give up Kuwait, or at least persuade a rival to oust Saddam and make peace. Another scenario is that Iraq's army, a mix of professionals and inexperienced soldiers, might surrender, but that's purely a hope.
World reaction to the attack against Iraq and Kuwait has been swift. The Israeli army has put emergency regulations into effect, ordering most citizens to stay home and to keep their gas masks ready in case of chemical attack. A general curfew has been ordered for the occupied West Bank and Gaza Strip, confining Palestinians to their homes. Jordan has closed the airport in its capital, and all flights have been canceled indefinitely. The military action is having repercussions in the oil market. Prices soared to about $40 per barrel as war with Iraq began. Crude prices then fell on word the U.S. government is opening its strategic reserves, and reports that several oil companies have frozen prices. This has been a live special report from AP Network News, Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Katie Smith, and this is the Associated Press Radio Network.
And this is Lee Hall in the AM-750 WSB News Center. 8 minutes before 1 o'clock, you can depend on AM-750 WSB for continuing coverage of the war in the Gulf with scheduled updates every 10 minutes. And this, of course, an extended version of Sound Off. Lee Hall in the News Center with Paul Gonzales and Wes Mitter.
And 1252, and Valerie in Nebraska. You're on AM-750 WSB.
Yes, hi.
Hi, what town you in, Valerie?
I'm in Culberson, Nebraska.
Well, what's the feeling around your town about what's happened here in the past few hours?
Well, we're all just wishing it would hurry up and get over with and get our guys and our ladies home so that they all can be home with their kids where they belong.
What were you doing when you first heard about what happened?
Well, I was sitting in a bar watching the TV. I'm just wanting it to get all over with because I've got a sister that, I don't know for sure if she's going to have to go over there or not, and it scares the daylights out of me.
What was the reaction in the bar when it came on the television, if they have one in there?
Well, it was kind of a shock. We was all really happy that it started and was going to hopefully come to an end. I'm kind of like the other listener on the, I'm just hoping the white flag will hurry up and get out.
But as the night went on, as you all were sitting around there watching it on the tube, was there kind of a feeling of, all right, I mean, were people starting to kind of start cheering on America, if you will?
Oh, yes and no.
Yeah.
Probably no protest in your small town in Nebraska.
No, none whatsoever.
We thank you for your call.
And this is my first time for listening, and I'm really happy that you guys have got this on the air.
Well, I hope you'll continue listening. We're on every night at 8 o'clock.
Okay, well, I'm hoping I can pick you back up on my radio.
Sounds great. Alan Athens, you're on AM-750 WSB.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Good.
First off, I just want to thank y'all for the job y'all have done. I think everybody in the world has been thanked and congratulated, but listening to y'all from, I guess, 7:30 on, I heard every word you said, practically every word you said, and I think y'all have done a wonderful job keeping things going, keeping things running as smoothly as you have. The news department, I've never heard a news department produce things the way your news department has done. But the second thing I want to say is thank God we're not going through another Munich and what would follow that.
Well, you know, it's interesting.
The terrorism is going to be something that is going to frighten us very, very much. I was talking to a friend of mine concerning the Super Bowl, which is going to be held in Tampa, Florida. And there was even some talk as to whether or not they should have the Super Bowl. And when terrorism hits us, that is going to be when it's really going to be real. And I hope that the security, especially at the airports, is going to be great. And we're going to try to have
people with slight or minor injuries, but a lot of property damage. The weapons were conventional warheads. They were not chemical weapons. And we're going to take a break to get an official live update in about 2.5 minutes from Washington. Until then, General Carey, once again, the retired Air Force Major General, joining us as a military expert here at WSB. General, we obviously sent another wave of planes, Allied forces, into Iraq to try to find any other missile launching sites or those mobile Scud missiles. Is that going to be effective, or what are we doing now as a way to make sure that this attack from Iraq doesn't keep going?
Well, I think the job of finding the mobile Scud missiles is a very, very difficult one. And the reason is that essentially the mobile Scud is simply a truck which has a missile mounted on the top of it. And the concept of operations that the Iraqis have used is to target or to mark on the ground where the launching site would be, and then to hide the vehicle under some foliage or a cave or camouflage it in some way. Now, the only way you can find these is through very detailed photographs, or in the case of the stealth fighter or the F-15 Strike Eagle, both of these aircraft have what are called infrared type of targeting devices. That is, you're looking at a picture that is given off by the heat emanations themselves.
So they can see where they are once they've been fired, and then can knock out that site. Is that correct?
Well, they can do a reverse on the ballistics, as you're talking about the type of trajectory that's flown, and then they just back it down on that parabola, and they have a location of where the potential launching site, but it's not going to be exact enough to target. You've got to get in there and get a visual sighting, because you've got to put some aim point for your weapons.
Less than a minute to go, General, but if those crews fire the missiles and then back the launcher back down into an underground bunker or something, you still can't find it, can you?
That's exactly right. So it's going to be one of the tougher jobs, but certainly one of the most important jobs of finding those mobile scuds. And Saddam Hussein has been playing his trump card, so to speak. It, to some degree, does not have a tremendous, significantly important military outcome, but as you can tell from the ongoing debate, it has a tremendously important role in the political arena.
General Kerry, we'll talk with you some more in just a couple of minutes. Now it's just about 20 after 6, 6:20 at AM-750 WSB, 36 degrees. We'll switch live now to Washington for another update, crisis in the Gulf, as the war continues. To find out the latest now, here at AM-750 WSB at 6:20.
This is a live special report from AP Network News. Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Mark Russo. More U.S. planes down in the air war. The AP's Thelma Lebrecht is at the Pentagon and joins us live. Thelma.
Yes, Mark, a total of 5 crewmen now are reported missing. The latest 4 from the 2 latest planes reported down, each with a 2-man crew. One is a Navy A-6 Intruder from an aircraft carrier. The other is a U.S. Air Force F-15E Eagle. Earlier, an FA-18 Hornet was reported missing, and its pilot officially listed as missing in action.
That's the AP's Thelma Lebrecht live at the Pentagon with word of more U.S. planes down in the air war against Iraq, which continues for a 3rd day with massive bombings. We have reports of U.S. ground forces moving into positions for possible assaults, and we have what amounts to ground combat just inside the Kuwaiti border. U.S. helicopter gunships attacking Iraqi artillery positions. And we've also had reports of several Marines hurt in a separate engagement. A big question today is, what will Israel do now that Iraqi missiles have struck Israeli targets, injuring 12 people? The AP's Eileen Alt-Powell is in Jerusalem.
Israeli government officials refuse even to confirm that there's a cabinet meeting. In fact, we have learned from various sources that Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir has met with some of his key cabinet ministers, notably Defense Minister Moshe Aarons, and that the discussion is supposed to focus on Israel's response to the missile attack.
Iraqi radio claims that Baghdad's missile attack on Israel hit political, economic, and scientific targets. A communique issued by the Iraqi Military General Command says, let the United States hear the wailing of its daughter implanted in the heart of the Arab homeland. This has been a live special report from AP Network News, Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Mark Russo, and this is the Associated Press Radio Network.
6:22 at AM-750 WSB, 36 degrees, and you're listening to continuing live coverage of the war in the Persian Gulf. Along with Kim Peterson, I'm Dave Folk.
Those flowers are beautiful.
Let's check in with WSB Skycopter Skyplane Traffic and Scott Slade.
Looking pretty good in downtown, David. No problems at all on 7585. The ride around Hartsfield Airport in good shape. No trouble getting in and out of the big terminal areas or getting out of the back way. If you've got to go to work down by Delta or Eastern or the FAA facility, you look fine getting off Aviation Boulevard or the Loop Road. I-20, we're over that right now. Westbound traffic is doing fine from Candler Road back into the city. No big trouble spots to mention down the interstates. One thing of the secondaries, a wreck clearing on Stone Mountain, Lithonia Road and Rockbridge Road. When you see traffic trouble, pass it on free on the Bell South Mobility Hotline. Just punch *750 on your car phone. That's AM-750 WSB Skycopter Skyplane Traffic.
The WSB exclusive 5-day forecast. For today, blue sky this morning, increasing clouds by evening, a high near 57. For tonight, a 40% chance of rain by morning, low 42. Tomorrow, rain 90% likely, high 52, low 38. And your extended forecast Sunday through Tuesday, showers ending Sunday, partly cloudy and windy, high Sunday near 52, lows near 36. Highs Tuesday only near 38 with lows near 26. At 6:25, 25 past 6, the temperature on Peachtree Street is 36. I'm meteorologist Kirk Mellish in the AM-750 WSB Weather Center.
6:26 at AM-750 WSB. 4 minutes until the continuous news again at 6:30. We'll have live reports from Washington every 10 minutes around the clock now here until further notice on the special edition of Atlanta's Morning Show, The Crisis in the Gulf, continuing the look at the war. It's escalating now, and with us to talk some more about it is Major General Gerald Carey, retired Air Force General. General, you heard the report just a few minutes ago about a firefight of some kind, apparently involving U.S. Marines inside Kuwait, which would indicate that not only are troops on the move, but they are engaging ground forces. Can you react to this, how you feel about this action now?
Well, I think it's, in my own view, somewhat premature to initiate the main type of ground combat. There's a lot of softening up that has to be done, a lot of reduction of the capability of the Iraqi forces through the use of B-52s. I would think this is more or less a probing action to see just how difficult they are rather than a main effort, but time will have to tell.
General, one thing that really impressed me this morning was the videotape apparently copied from one of the stealth fighters in the first night of raids against Baghdad. And one of those attacks shows a bomb being dropped right through the skylight of one of Saddam Hussein's palaces there in Baghdad. How do you get a bomb to do that?
Well, you know, there's been a lot of criticism of high tech, and I think here's a case of where it worked well. And the way you do it is as follows. You've got an infrared picture, and which tells you based upon the heat of the different structures, and it gives you a pretty darn good picture even in complete darkness. And once you have that picture, you put what's called the laser spotter right on the target, and then you drop a paveway laser-guided bomb, and it follows that laser beam, which is very, very narrow, right through the window. And it can be done, and it looks like it was done.
Just rides a light beam right to where it's aimed.
That's correct.
General, have you heard, as I have, that, and I'm sure you know more about this, and it may be classified and you can't talk about it, but I've heard reports that some of the locations in Iraq, which obviously were hurt in the first strike, the first wave of air attacks when the war began, that some of those missile locations and other strategic military spots were targeted early with some sort of sensor which acted like a beacon for the bombs to hit them and take them out. Is that, can that be done in advance? Is that kind of a thing that would be done through sabotage or secret agents who plant some kind of homing devices in these things? Is that what helped knock down those defenses so quickly?
Well, you're bringing up something that I really don't have any accurate knowledge on. I think the Tomahawk operates on a scene-matching type of target, which can put the Tomahawk 2,000-pound bomb right through the goalpost, which actually matches the scene that it has stored in the Tomahawk missile with what it sees on the ground, and has that fine type of grain guidance to do that. So that's the type of guidance, and I'm not familiar with the type you're referring to.
And we also have the Rockeye bombs that are, I think, radar-guided, right?
Well, the Rockeye is radar-guided, that's correct, and it's trying, again, to get a radar scene matching so that it can have smart terminal guidance.
Some amazing weaponry.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead, sir.
I think if there's been one lesson learned out of this engagement, is that high technology, when it's maintained in a high state of capability matched with a good readiness, does do the job. We see on the Patriot interception of the Scud missile in flight. We see on the stealth bomber that you've talked about. We've seen about on the Tomahawk guidance. The electronic combat that we talked about, jamming and destroying command and control, are all relatively new in military combat and do prove, I think, that high technology investment can make a difference.
Well, this is, of course, something that's new to most of us because we haven't had this kind of a high technology effort really since Vietnam, although there was some talk, obviously, the same kind of technology in Panama and other invasions. But this is now it for real as we're going into more of a full-scale war effort. We'll be keeping you posted with our comments from retired Major General Gerald Carey through the morning on the special edition of Atlanta's Morning Show.
Good morning. I'm Dave Folk.
And I'm Kim Peterson in the AM-750 WSB News Center.
The top news, more casualties in the Gulf fighting.
And waiting for Israel to react. The stories and the details coming up.
The temperature at 6:30 is 36 degrees, increasing clouds by evening, high near 57. I'm WSB meteorologist Kirk Mellish.
I'm Scott Slade, the AM-750 WSB Skycopter. A good ride so far this morning around the metro area. The interstates are accident-free. At least we haven't spotted anything on 75, 85.
The Pentagon reports 5 more Americans are casualties of the Persian Gulf War. Correspondent Thelma Lebrecht reports from the Pentagon.
2 latest planes have been reported missing. One is a Navy A-6 Intruder with a 2-man crew. The other is a U.S. Air Force F-15 Eagle with 2 men also reported missing. Previously, an FA-18 Hornet was reported missing, and the pilot aboard that, Michael Spiker, is now officially listed as missing in action.
Spiker is 33 years old. He's from Jacksonville, Florida. He teaches Sunday school and has a wife and 2 small children.
Iraq has released its first casualty figures. A report on Iraqi radio says 23 civilians have been killed and 66 wounded in the initial hours of Operation Desert Storm. There is no report of any military casualties.
It's 6:32. Operation Desert Storm thunders into the second full day as Allied fighter pilots make another wave of bombing runs over Iraqi missile sites. On Thursday, U.S. and Allied forces flew more than 1,300 air missions, pounding targets 3 and 4 times. But on Capitol Hill, Georgia Senator Sam Nunn says it'll be tough for our side to track down all of Iraq's missile launchers.
So we had hoped that we would detect them. They could be coming from anywhere. And, of course, Iraq is a very large country, and you can't cover everything. We've had aircraft up there all day long making sure that they did everything possible to keep this from happening. But there were no guarantees.
Israeli Air Force Airman Manny Malkin saw one of those missiles hit in Tel Aviv.
The roof starts falling, windows blow to our face. I thought to myself, no, it's not happening.
Malkin was among those injured in the attack. He described it as like being in hell.
And Israel says it is paying dearly for the Persian Gulf War.
And there has been considerable damage in property. Among other things, because that area where the missiles hit it does not usually contain the best of housing.
That's Salman Shoval, the Israeli ambassador to the United States.
We'd like to remind you, you're listening to continuing coverage of the war in the Persian Gulf along with Kim Peterson. I'm Dave Folk. Our senior producer in the News Center is Candace Presley. Also, Bobby Harper and Kathy Fishman are there. They're right here. They're helping out in the News Center. Military leaders warned early in the attack that the United States has not destroyed all of Iraq's missile launch facilities.
Although the U.S. is reassuring Israel that it's making every effort to eliminate further threats from Iraqi Scud missiles, it may be a hard promise to keep. The Pentagon has said repeatedly that finding and eliminating Scud missiles that have been mounted on trucks for quick movement is no easy task. A senior Pentagon official says the military is relatively certain that most of the fixed Scud sites have been eliminated. But in the official's words, you can't get every mobile target. Some good news, the U.S. has proved its Patriot missiles can shoot down Scuds, as happened in Saudi Arabia. Brian Bland, the Pentagon.
More now on that crucial piece of America's military hardware that passed its first test in combat, the Patriot Interceptor missile knocking down an Iraqi Scud that was headed toward Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. Correspondent Steve Futterman has more.
For the first time since the war began, activity over the skies in eastern Saudi Arabia. An Iraqi Scud missile penetrated Saudi airspace, but was intercepted by an American Patriot missile. The action took place just before dawn, and for a moment, the skies here lit up. The Patriot is considered America's best defense against missile attacks, and this is believed to be the first time it's been used in actual combat. There is no indication whether this particular Scud missile was armed with chemical weapons, but clearly this has changed the mood here in Saudi Arabia as the Gulf conflict takes on an even more ominous tone. This is Steve Futterman in eastern Saudi Arabia.
6:35 at AM 750 WSB. Coming up on our continuing coverage of the war in the Persian Gulf, we'll tell you about some oil streaks on the doors of the Martin Luther King Federal Building downtown. 36 degrees on Peachtree Street.
Mountains of Colombia, they celebrate the sun for being so warm, the winds for being so cool. For only from here
Reminder, coming up at 7 o'clock, we'll be live from Saudi Arabia, a briefing of the commanding general of the Allied forces in the Persian Gulf, General Norman Schwarzkopf. We'll have a briefing, and we'll have that for you live here on AM 750 WSB. Now, let's get you to work. Here's WSB Sky.
Any kind of suicide vehicle from smashing into the structure.
6:39 at AM 750 WSB to update you on the very latest that we know from the Middle East. Some more American flyers are reported missing, and F-15E Strike Eagle is reported down with one crew member on board. Also an A-6 Intruder, that's a two-man aircraft, an attack airplane. Usually a Navy plane is also reported down and missing. One pilot's identity has been revealed, the one killed in the shooting down of his F-18 Hornet. He was a 33-year-old father of two from Mayport, Florida. Coming up, once again, to remind you, right after this break, to check in with Washington, we'll have Congressman Ben Jones from here in Atlanta. And also at 7 o'clock, General Norman Schwarzkopf. He is the commanding general of all of the Allied forces in the Persian Gulf. He'll give us an update on the situation there. Now, let's check in for the very latest from Washington.
This is a live special report from AP Network News. Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Mark Russo. Bad luck and bad weather on the third day of Operation Desert Storm. Bad luck because the Allied bombardment did not get all the Iraqi Scud missiles, and Baghdad has fired several at Israel, hitting Tel Aviv and Haifa, injuring at least 12 people. Israeli officials say it's a miracle. It's amazing that not more damage and more casualties. Israel is considering a response. Iraqi radio claims that Baghdad's missile attack hit political, economic, and scientific targets in Israel. And witnesses tell us that it actually hit low-income housing areas in and near Tel Aviv and Haifa. Reporter John Bascom is in Saudi Arabia watching planes take off for still more bombing runs, but the weather is none too good.
Well, for the second day in a row, bad weather is playing right into the hands of the Iraqi military. For the second time in a row, F-16 jets at this base have gone out on a mission and come back still fully loaded. They're just simply unable to see their targets up in Iraq because of bad weather, so they can't drop their bombs.
That's the reporter John Bascom watching planes take off for still more bombing runs on Iraq. We've had reports of what amounts to, or what comes close at any rate, to the first combat action we've seen on the ground. Just inside the Kuwaiti border, we've heard that Marine gunships, helicopter gunships, have been attacking Iraqi artillery positions, again, just inside the Kuwaiti border. We have few details, though, other than that. The Pentagon now says 2 more American aircraft and their 4 crewmen are missing in the continuing air war. Military officials say the 2 planes missing since yesterday are a Navy A-6 Intruder and an Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle. A total of 3 U.S. aircraft have been lost in the first 36 hours of the war. This has been a live special report from AP Network News. Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Mark Russo, and this is the Associated Press Radio Network.
This is Dave Folk in the AM 750 WSB News Center, along with Kim Peterson. Our executive producer in the News Center is Candace Presley. And Kirk Mellish, our Atlanta's only full-time radio meteorologist. You heard them talking about the bad weather, unsuitable for any bombing runs over Iraq. What's the weather like for the next few days in the Middle East?
Well, Dave, a cold front has just swept through there, and that's the cause of the showers and the clouds that have been causing the problems, but that's moving out now, and an area of clear weather is going to move into that part of the Middle East for the next, about the next 48 hours. There will be some clouds, but not too much, and there will be a little bit of blowing sand due to some gusty winds. It looks like the next cloudy, showery pattern will move in there during the day on Sunday.
Okay, that'll be good news for the Falcon pilots. 36 degrees on Peachtree Street at 6:43.
Raising kids is so hectic. I need a diet that thinks for me. A diet that tells me what to eat and when to eat it.
14 minutes in front of 7 o'clock, and a special briefing from Saudi Arabia live here at AM-750 WSB at 7 for the latest from the military commander, General Schwarzkopf. Now we say good morning to Congressman Ben Jones in Atlanta, who's been monitoring the developments in the Gulf. Good morning, Congressman.
Morning.
We have our first indication, sir, of ground troops in action. It's what we must say is a minor skirmish. Apparently some Marine helicopters took on some firefight of some kind with troops on the ground inside Kuwait. This is not any kind of a signal of a major ground offensive, but there has been some ground fighting now. Also, 2 more American jets are lost. 4 more crewmen are missing for a total of 5, and 3 American jets. Your comments this morning, Congressman Jones, about the escalation in the war, more American casualties, which we knew would be coming.
Well, I think given the extent of the war, the vastness of it, particularly of well over 1,000 sorties that have been carried out, that although it's tragic, our casualties are still minimal in this situation. I think we're all hopeful that there's no major ground engagement until we can continue to soften those positions through bombardment, so that also will lead to fewer casualties on the ground. I don't know the particulars, the specifics of that ground action. I would imagine those were Apache helicopters going in after tanks. And we do have that capability. I think we'll continue B-52 bombing of those positions. The great tragedy of this sad business, this grim business, is that Saddam Hussein is bringing this upon his people unnecessarily. And I think it's an indication of his madness that he would commit his society to this kind of attack unnecessarily. And there's no good end to it for him. He should surrender. He should do what is best for his people, and I think he's incapable of doing that psychologically.
We're also, of course, waiting for the other shoe to drop, in effect, to find out what Israel will do, if anything. American advisors are, and President Bush and the Secretary of State are, in effect, begging Israel not to retaliate for the Scud missile attacks in Tel Aviv and Haifa and other parts of the seacoast territory in Israel.
The Israelis, I think, have shown great restraint. They forewent a preemptive strike, which was in their defensive interest, and they've now foregone, for the time being, a retaliatory strike. Of course, they do know that any kind of retaliatory strike which they could take out at this point is being taken on by the Allies. That the massive force that we're using is capable of responding to their interests right now.
Congressman, we have about a minute. Anything you can add to the worries over terrorism in this country? Apparently, some extraordinary security measures taken to places like the Super Bowl coming up, a lot of the public theaters, things like that.
And well, they should be. Although with terrorists, you can never get 100% protection. I think we'll see that sort of thing. It's an unfortunate byproduct of this kind of war and that kind of mentality. We may sort of have to get used to that, and certainly used to the kind of security that we're going to need to prevent it. I think we will, all of us need to learn to be a little bit more careful and certainly to be more patient with security processes.
Congressman, we're going to come back and we'll let you go for now, sir. We definitely appreciate your comments. We'll also have some from Major General Kerry, the retired Air Force general, concerning the military operations in the Persian Gulf. We want to switch now live at 6:50, 10 before 7, to another live update on the crisis in the Persian Gulf, Operation Desert Storm. This is AM-750 WSB. It's 6:50 a.m.
This is a live special report from AP Network News. Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Mark Russo. Bad weather is hampering the air war against Iraq. Reporter John Bascom reports from at least one affected air base in Saudi Arabia.
The F-16 fighters at this base in central Saudi Arabia have not been able to drop a bomb in Iraq since dawn on the first day of this war. They've gone up there several times since then, but bad weather has obscured their vision. And if they can't see their target, they can't hit their target. They don't want to simply drop their bombs through the haze. So for the second time in a row, they've had to return to base fully loaded.
The Pentagon now says that 2 more American aircraft and their 4 crewmen are missing in this continuing air assault on Iraq. That makes a total of 3 U.S. aircraft lost in the first 36 hours of the war, and we have also had reports previously given to you of losses by other Allied nations, including Italy and Britain. Iraqi missiles have hit targets in Israel, and that was everybody's big nightmare. Civilian targets say Israel and witnesses, but Baghdad says economic and political targets. At least 12 people hurt. Israeli officials say it's a miracle that more weren't hurt, considering where they fell. We also have reports of some elderly Israelis suffocating because they put their gas masks on incorrectly. And there's a emergency cabinet meeting apparently in Jerusalem as we speak, involving Yitzhak Shamir, the Israeli prime minister, and his top officials to determine a possible response to this Iraqi missile attack, something that political planners are fearing. This has been a live special report from AP Network News, Crisis in the Gulf. I'm Mark Russo, and this is the Associated Press Radio Network.
You're listening to continuing coverage of the war in the Gulf on Atlanta's news, weather, and traffic station, AM-750 WSB. Dave Folk, along with Kim Peterson, expected in about 8 or 9 minutes a briefing in Saudi Arabia from General Norman Schwarzkopf, the commander of the Allied forces there. We'll have that for you. We also have our experts in the studio, especially General Gerald Carey. We'll be talking about some of the air procedures of bombing and just how you carry off a bad weather raid that is apparently causing some trouble over Baghdad right now. Also, coming up, check on traffic and weather.
You buy a cellular phone to be productive, but if you buy a cellular phone from who knows where, you could produce some real problems.
Hi, boss. I think you're an absolute jerk. You should take the entire...
First public statements about how the campaign is going. General Norman Schwarzkopf, commander of the U.S. Central Command, is about to meet reporters in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. You can hear the sound of the mic checks going on behind me. As we wait to hear from Schwarzkopf, though, let's bring you up to date on the overnight developments from the Gulf. Headlining these, of course, Iraq's missile attack on Israel. Some 12 people at last count injured in the pre-dawn attack by Iraqi Scud missiles. Israel's Prime Minister, Yitzhak Shamir, has been meeting with cabinet members and defense officials to ponder a possible retaliatory strike. Now, the United States is believed to want Israel to stay out of the fighting, fearing that such a move could weaken the multinational alliance against Iraq. However, CBS News in the last few minutes has quoted unnamed political sources in Jerusalem as saying that Israel has decided on a measured response to the Iraqi attack, and the same report says that Israeli jets have flown over southern Lebanon in the direction of Iraq and Syria, and that about a half an hour ago. Once again, we're standing by to hear from General Norman Schwarzkopf, commander of the U.S. Central Command, in his first briefing since the outset of Operation Desert Storm. In Washington, the Pentagon this morning confirmed that another 2 U.S. aircraft and their 4 crewmen are missing as Allied forces continue with wave after wave of attacks in the Gulf. The Pentagon report brings the number of missing U.S. aircraft to 3. The announcement also follows word today that an Italian warplane is missing, and officials say a British fighter and a Kuwaiti plane, I should say 2 British fighters and a Kuwaiti plane, were lost in the continuing attacks on Iraq and Iraqi-occupied Kuwait.
This is Dave Folk in the AM-750 WSB News Center. While we wait for General Schwarzkopf to start speaking, let's don't forget that you need to get from one place to the other this morning, so let's check in with Scott Slade, WSB Skycopter Skyplane Traffic briefly. AM-750 WSB, and while we wait for that briefing from General Schwarzkopf and a special report from the AP Network, Dr. Ken Stein, our Emory Mideast expert, anything new, anything startled you about the report that Iraq might have, that Israel might have launched a raid toward Iraq?
It's only a report, and I don't think there would be anyone in Israel who would be able to even know for sure whether the Israelis have attacked or not. It's not the kind of thing that the Israelis take advertisements out in the newspapers to discuss.
Yeah, their information is very controlled. As a matter of fact, not even where those missiles struck last night, not even the names of the streets were released by the military, were they?
No, the Israelis are very cautious. They don't need to tell anyone about the success or the lack of success of the Scud missile attacks. And the Israelis need not even send airplanes if they were going to respond. They have their own Jericho missile that could reach certain targets inside Iraq if that were necessary. But it's still much too early to even suggest that the Israelis have responded.
Dr. Stein, as we're waiting for the briefing to begin in Saudi Arabia, we'll keep chatting with you for a second. Let me read you a couple of quotes that came through from Cyprus this morning, that Iraq is claiming its missiles hit, quote, political, economic, and scientific targets in Israel, and said Baghdad has become a jungle of fighters and trenches ready to repel attackers. Quote, let the United States hear the wailing of its daughter implanted in the heart of the Arab homeland. The Iraqi military is not giving details of those targets, but another quote from Iraq this morning. After relying on all-powerful and almighty God, our struggling missile forces pounded political, economic, and scientific targets in Tel Aviv, Haifa, and elsewhere in Israel. The United States wanted to spare Israel the burden of war and its losses and to keep it as an onlooker enjoying the aggression of the aggressors, according to Baghdad Radio. More tough talk from Hussein, and he's saying that they have dug in the trenches and they are ready to fight. Typical ballyhooing rhetoric, or is this in fact some kind of warning that he may have something else up his sleeve?
Well, it's rich and it's colorful, and you're in the middle of a war, and he's trying to stimulate the Iraqi population to retain their own resolve in this conflict, which is not going to be short now, but perhaps a little bit longer than he had anticipated. I spoke this morning to an academic colleague in Israel who lives within about 4 kilometers or 5 kilometers of where one of the Scuds hit, and it hit. One of them hit within about 100 yards of a factory in Israel, and if it had hit on another 100 yards on the other side, it would have slammed into a heavily populated residential neighborhood. The Israelis were very lucky last night to get away with very limited casualties.
Media briefing.
Professor Stein, we're going to break away now to Saudi Arabia with
Command and the commander of Operation Desert
General
Storm.
Schwarzkopf is about to give a briefing.
He will be followed by the commander of the U.S. Central Air Forces, Lieutenant General Charles A. Horner. Following their remarks, we will have a question and answer session. To give everyone the opportunity to ask a question, we ask that you limit your follow-ups to 1 per person, please. Again, please hold your questions until you've heard from both of our speakers today. Ladies and gentlemen, General Schwarzkopf.
Afternoon. I'm sorry I'm a little bit late, but we had some late news that I think you'd be interested in. I'll bring you up to date on a little bit later. Let me just start by saying that, as you all know, we are now 36 hours into Operation Desert Storm. I would tell you that to date, the campaign is going just about exactly as we expected it to go. As in the early days of any battle, the fog of war is present, but I would tell you that having been in the outset of several battles myself and having been at in the early hours of the Grenada campaign, I would tell you that we probably have a more accurate picture of what's going on in Operation Desert Storm than I have ever had before in the early hours of a battle. That picture is not perfect, but I think it's pretty good, and I want to just kind of bring you up to date on where we are at the present time. As far as air operations are concerned, we are flying a total of about 2,000 air sorties of all types each day. More than 80% of all of those sorties have successfully engaged their targets. The sorties are being flown by the United States Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, and some Army. We also have 6 other nations that are involved with us in this coalition: Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the United Kingdom, the Canadians, the French, and the Italians have all participated in the air campaign to date. In addition to flying offensive operations, They are also flying defensive air operations over Saudi Arabia to protect the kingdom and also to protect, naturally, our forces that are here. To date, we have lost 7 aircraft. 2 United States Navy aircraft, 1 F-18 and 1 A-6, 1 Air Force F-15, 1 Kuwaiti A-4, 2 British Tornadoes, and the most recent one was an Italian Tornado. With regard to the disposition of the pilots, we are carrying all of the pilots as missing in action. However, we now have pretty good information that the Kuwaiti pilot is probably safe in the hands of the Kuwaiti resistance. At sea, of course, in addition to flying against the targets that the Navy is taking on, the Navy is also in the business of protecting the fleet, both with their ships and with their aircraft aloft. We're tracking any potential adversaries that look like they're coming out to threaten the ships, and we're engaging those as required. This morning, the Navy has engaged 3 enemy patrol boats and either disabled them or sunk them. In addition to that, we have increasing numbers of amphibious ships moving into the Gulf area at this time. On the ground, of course, the United States Army and the United States Marine Corps is continuing to defend Saudi Arabia. We're also repositioning our forces for further action. To date, there has been no direct hostile confrontation on the ground. However, yesterday there was a slight artillery duel, artillery on the part of the enemy that was immediately reacted to by our air, and the artillery was silenced. During that duel, we had 2 Marines that were lightly wounded in action. Of course, the significant news today, I'm sure you all know about, but there were 7 Scuds fired early this morning against Israel, and there was 1 Scud missile fired against Dhahran. The 1 Scud missile that was fired against Dhahran was destroyed by United States Army Patriot missile. Fortunately, the 7 missiles that were fired against Israel, I would characterize as having yielded absolutely insignificant results. And as a result, I think to date we can say that the enemy Scud campaign has been ineffective. Now for the good news. As you know, finding the fixed missile launchers is a relatively easy business, but finding the mobile launchers is like finding a needle in a haystack, as you can well imagine. This morning, the United States Air Force found 3 mobile erector launchers with missiles on board inside Iraq. These launchers were obviously aimed at Saudi Arabia, given their positions. Those 3 mobile elector launchers have been destroyed. In addition to that, at the same time, we found 8 more mobile erector launchers in the same location. We are currently attacking those launchers, and we have confirmed the destruction of 3 more of those mobile erector launchers, and we are continuing to attack the others, and I assure you we will attack them relentlessly until either we are prevented from attacking them any further by weather or we have destroyed them all. In concluding my remarks, I want to make just 2 points. The first point is the one that you've heard from the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but I think it bears repeating. And that's that we are only 36 hours into what is a campaign. The President of the United States said that this is not Panama. It will not be over in a day, and it certainly won't. So we are just continuing on in this campaign, and the campaign will continue until we have accomplished our objectives. The second point I'd like to make is that we're doing absolutely everything we possibly can in this campaign to avoid injuring or hurting or destroying innocent people. We have said all along that this is not a war against the Iraqi people, and I think very shortly you're going to hear a little bit more about what we're doing to try and avoid hurting innocent people. At this point, I'd like to introduce to you Lieutenant General Chuck Horner. Chuck Horner is the commander of United States Central Command Air Forces. Since August, we have been planning this campaign. And I think the one person who has probably could be considered the architect of the entire air campaign as is being conducted today is Chuck Horner. He is certainly the one person more than anyone else who is responsible for the magnificent airmen who are out there conducting this campaign today. He's a superb leader. I am very proud to have him as a member of my team, and I'm exceptionally proud of the absolutely fantastic job he and the members of his staff and the people under his command have done to date in this air campaign. And with that, I'd like to turn my podium over to Chuck Horner for his remarks.
Live continuing coverage here from AM-750 WSB.
Thank you, General Schwarzkopf. The objectives of the air campaign were set out by General Schwarzkopf in August. And we've worked hard to bring together this very complex and very large campaign plan. We've been able to integrate all our forces because we all fly off in common air tasking order. And you heard that we have forces from all the services in the United States, plus many countries in the multinational force. We've been able to execute because we've trained very hard. And you'll find sorties where a Saudi aircraft will be dropping bombs and be escorted by an American fighter, provided support by other aircraft such as from the countries mentioned. I can give you one example. It just happened the first day. It was an excellent example where we had a American F-15s escorting Saudi aircraft and also providing, the Navy was providing ECM jamming, and the Saudi airplane put 4 craters on the runway. And I'll tell you right now, we couldn't have taken a pickup truck and put those bombs and laid them out there any more accurately. So we've had some very, very good cooperation and integration of our forces. The types of aircraft we have involved in this campaign have been key to its success. There's no doubt that our air defense and our awareness of what's going on in the air battlefield are result in large measure because of what the AWACS provides us and the defense that aircraft such as the F-14 and the F-15 provide our forces. It has been in some respect a technology war, although it is fought by men and women. Certainly one of the strongest guidance we had from the very start was to avoid any damage to civilian targets and to the holy shrines that happen to be located in Iraq. And we've looked at every target from the outset for avenues of approach, the exact type of weapon to cause damage to the target but preclude damage in the surrounding area, and precision delivery. And I'll be showing you a film clip of the typical type of precision deliveries that we have come to expect. Obviously, it has not been easy. I think you've seen on television the air defenses in Baghdad, and you've seen interviews with the air crew who flew in Vietnam say this is as tough or tougher than anything they've ever seen. I'm very proud of our air crews, the way they've shown tremendous discipline and tremendous courage. It is a long, hard task. We're very optimistic about what we do, but we're not overly confident. What I have now to show you are some film clips of some actual weapons delivery. So let me come around here. And these first 2 will be F-111 deliveries using laser-guided bombs. This is a runway at an airfield halfway between Baghdad and Kuwait. The center of the runway is the end point. This is where the laser designator is pointed. This is taken at night with infrared sensors. And there the bomb goes off in the center of the runway. And heat shows up as white. And now you'll see the pilot switch to higher magnification and as he flies away from the target. This is the smoke plume from the bomb, and there's the crater. The next one is a Scud storage building in Kuwait, and keep your eye on the entrance to the storage. Again, the pilot has released his bombs about 2 miles away. He's banking away from the target, leaving the target area, lasing the target, and you'll see 2 bombs fly into the door of the storage bunker. You can almost get airsick watching this.
Perhaps we should describe that the pilot is about 90 degrees off of true vertical on this. And the The building explodes in a ball of flame.
This is the Air Defense Headquarters in the vicinity of Baghdad. These are air shafts that provide best access into this concrete structure. And keep your eye on the front door, the airlock door, as the debris comes out the door from the bomb going in this lead-in air shaft. Here it goes in, and here comes the debris. This is another air defense sector over in the western part of Iraq. It's already been struck by a 117. This is a team effort. The second aircraft comes through, and this part of the building here provides some constructional weakness that will be exploited in this attack, and the bomb will hit in this area here. And this is my counterpart's headquarters in Baghdad. This is the headquarters of the Air Force, and keep your eye on all sides of the building as the airplane overflies the building and drops the bomb down through the center of the building.
Looking directly down on top of about a 4-story, 5-story, 6-story building. Crosshairs right on the top, and just about everything blows out the sides of the building.
You probably heard from the oohs and ahs in the room. The building did explode in a puff of smoke.
If we have any success in this air campaign, I can attribute it in large measure to the freedom with which we've been allowed to plan the campaign. We've had stringent guidance with regard to civilian damage, things of that nature. But the President down through the Secretary of Defense, Chairman Powell and General Schwarzkopf have been the key reason we've been able to plan a very efficient military campaign within the guidelines they've set forth to us. Thank you very much.
We'd be very happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Charlene?
Can you tell us anything about the possible entry of Israel into this campaign? And I'll ask you my follow-up so I don't have to waste your time. If indeed Israel does get into this campaign, how will it be coordinated with the Allied forces already in theater?
Charlene, I have